Good day, students at home. Welcome to another episode of Schoolonair. We shall be talking about right today. But before then, if you can recollect very well, we talk about meaning of law, types of law, and rights of citizen last class. Today, we shall be looking at types of rights. Types of rights. Some will ask me, right is right now after all. But I want to tell you today, there are categories of rights, and which I will be explaining to you. Right, whether political, socio-economic, or legal, or civic, are grouped into two. Just like all human beings on earth are grouped into two. Even though we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have engineers, we have teachers, we have illiterates, and so on. All of them are grouped into two, male and female. And so today, I want to tell you two types of rights. We are going to look at natural right, and we are going to look at legal right. Natural right and legal right. Let's start with natural right. What is natural right? As the name goes, natural, inborn, innate. This is otherwise known as moral or inalienable rights that are derived from human nature. The moment a child is born into this world, there are some rights he or she brings into the world. For example, there is no law saying babies must cry immediately they are given birth to. Automatically, he or she cries when it comes out of the mother's womb. These are natural rights, the freedom of speech. We also talk about freedom of movement. You don't need any law, you don't need any statutory provision to tell a baby to begin to crawl. And when it is time for him to stand up and walk, no law. There's no law saying at a point in time he or she must walk. It is natural. It is something you cannot take away from human being. And that's why I call it inalienable. They are derived from human nature. Natural rights are also those rights that do not depend on laws, customs, or belief, or any particular culture or government. They are not derived from any culture. And that is why in Nigeria, there's freedom of movement. In America, there's freedom of movement. In Costa Rica, there's freedom of speech. In Togo, there's freedom of speech. It is the same everywhere. It is not taken from the belief of that community or that country or from their custom. It is natural. It doesn't depend on any law. I also say they are universal and inalienable because they apply to all people, irrespective of their culture, irrespective of sex, irrespective of their race, not minding where they come from. They are all entitled to natural right. And I want to give you an example here. Number one, freedom of movement. Number two, right to life. We can also add freedom of speech and expression to natural rights. And we may also call them moral rights. And just like I told you, they are not derived from any system. They are not derived from any law. They are not derived from any belief. They are just natural. It is applicable to everybody. Legal right. And as the name goes, legal, law. These rights are also called civil or statutory rights. Statutory in the sense that they are written down. They are passed at one time or the other on the floor of the Legislative Assembly. And that is why they are legal rights. In other words, there are some legal rights here in Nigeria that is not applicable in Kenya. There are some in Kenya that are not applicable in Nigeria. There are some rights under legal aspect that you can fight for in America that you cannot fight for in Nigeria because they are legal. They are statutory. Legal rights are bestowed on citizens by established laws and legal system of that society, and therefore relative to specific culture and government. Just like I told you earlier on, they are specific to culture and government. The one that is relative to American citizens may not be relative here. Legal rights in Kenya, in Cuba, in Pakistan, in Iran may be different from legal rights in Nigeria. The content, even though the content may be the same, but what it entails, the interpretation may be different. Legal rights are recognized and enforceable in courts of law. You can fight for it. You can defend it anywhere. Having known that, we talk about legal rights and we talk about natural rights. I said natural rights are the one derived from nature, also known as inalienable rights or moral rights. We also talk about legal rights, the one derived from a particular law of a country. Now we want to move ahead and want to talk about government. We want to look at government as an institution of the state. Even though there are various aspects of government we can look at, but right here in civic education class, we are going to look at it as a process of governing, as a process of ruling a state, as an institution of the state, rather than as a field of study. And so what is government? As the name goes, government. Virtually every system has government. In your own family, you have government. The father is the head of government in your house, assisted by your mother. That is government. Any society without a form of government or the other is what a philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, refers to as a jungle state, a state of lawlessness where there will be anarchy, because there is nobody to give instruction, nobody is taking responsibility for anything. And so let me give you the first definition of government. Number one, it is an officially constituted body of people granted a mandate or authority to direct, control, and manage the affairs of the country on behalf of the people. They are given the mandate. In other words, when we vote for them, what are we saying? We are telling them, go ahead, lead us, give us instruction, exercise authority on our behalf. Another definition, it is a machinery or agency through which the will or goals of a country are planned, 1, implemented, 2, and achieved, 3. In other words, there is formulation stage for every policy, for every program of government. There is also implementation stage and the achievement stage. The planning stage is when the various government officials sit down to plan, to strategize. The implementation stage is carrying out such projects or programs. And the achievement stage is when people now see it on ground, when they enjoy the dividends of democracy. That is another definition of government. By this definition, we all know the importance of government in any democratic setting. And so for a country to continually exist, the role of government cannot be overemphasized. And so here we want to look at the functions of government. Functions of government. Number 1, they make relevant laws through the legislature for good governance. It is the duty of government to make law and give it to the citizens, to regulate their conduct, to make sure things are working perfectly, to create an orderly society. Number 2, government also administers justice and resolve conflict through the judicial organ of government. Like I told you earlier on, there is government in your house. And when there is crisis, who settles the crisis? The father and the mother. Imagine a scenario. Daddy is not around, mommy is not around. There is crisis in the home. What happens? There will be a problem. And you have to wait until they come back from their trip. And so it behoves the government to administer justice, to settle disputes among citizens. And they do this through the judicial organ of government. Number 3, government provide conducive atmosphere for economic activities in the country. There is need for citizens to go about their lawful duty in a protected atmosphere, in an atmosphere devoid of crisis, devoid of conflict, devoid of bloodshed. And so the government has to put in place necessary machineries that will ensure a conducive atmosphere for people to carry out their lawful economic engagement. Number 4, they are required to provide employment opportunities for citizens to curb the rate of crime in our society. Even though you also agree with me that government alone cannot provide employment for everybody, but at least to a reasonable extent, it is the duty of government to provide employment for its citizenry. And by doing this, the rate of crimes and criminalities will be reduced in the society. Number 5, government is expected to provide social amenities and services to enhance citizens' welfare. The welfare of citizens should be the utmost priority of any elected government. And so they are expected to provide social amenities, just as roads, schools, constructing buildings for schools, building hospitals, and so on and so forth, to enhance citizens' welfare. It is also the constitutional duties of government to defend the country against external attack through the armed forces. Government establishes armed forces like the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, whose duty is to defend the territorial integrity of the nation. That is part of the duty of the government. Because any country that is not protected will be accessible, will be prone to external attack. And so the government provides security. The government provides defense for the country. They maintain peace, law, and order through relevant security agencies. I told you earlier on, there can be economic activities in an atmosphere of crisis, conflict, political crisis, and so on. And so it is the duty of government to ensure peace, to maintain peace and order. One, by establishing relevant security agencies. Two, by enacting enabling laws that will make sure citizens are not involved in criminal activities that can endanger the lives of others. We have talked about types of rights. We talk about natural right. We talk about legal right. What are natural rights? Natural rights are rights that are not derived from any laws, that are natural, that are inalienable, such as freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and expression. We also talk about functions. We talk about government and its function. I told you, government is a machinery through which the wills, the aspirations, the goals of people are formulated, implemented, and achieved. We also talk about functions of government. I said it is the duty of government to maintain peace, law, and order through relevant agencies such as the police force, 2, the civil defense, 3, other law enforcement agents such as NDLEA, the ICPC, the EFCC, and so on. Government is expected to provide social amenities and services which will enhance the welfare of citizens. It is also their constitutional duty to defend the country against external attack, and this they do through the armed forces. Government is to provide conducive atmosphere which will enable people to carry on their economic activities. You agree with me? It is not possible for a parent to go to work today if there is crisis, if there is fighting. And so nothing reasonable can be achieved unless there is peace and stability, unless there is conducive atmosphere. These and others we talk about concerning the functions of government. And so I want to give you the following questions which I'd like you to answer and send to the address on the screen. Number 1, explain the meaning of legal right. Number 2, explain in detail the relevance of government in the continued existence of a state. Until we meet again, have a wonderful time.